What's up, guys? Main man Sui here. Well, sorry, mailman Sui. Okay, I have a very hard time getting used to that. Sorry for getting the intro wrong. Please don't unsubscribe, please. Hoping you're all doing awesome as always. In today's video, I want to talk a little bit about Tekken versus Street Fighter. What's the better game? Well, I think it's Tekken, but I'm gonna try and do an unbiased, objective breakdown of these games. Interesting conversation, in my opinion. Diaphone recently made a video, well, a couple of weeks ago, I think, where he said, on the thumbnail, basically, the title of the video is, what fighting games should you play in 2026? And he specifically, in the thumbnail goes like, avoid Tekken 8 and peak Street Fighter 6. Obviously, this was before the very healthy patch we got, 3.0002, which did a lot to alleviate heat and some of the most obnoxious launchers and garbage in Tekken 8, and nerfed a lot of the biggest offenders, you know, like Horang Flappy, Claudio DP. Many things we could get into that was super dumb. Finally, Tekken 8 is so much better. We'll see what happens when Kuni drops in late May and when we get an additional patch on that. But so anyway, Diaphone saying to avoid Tekken 8. This is very much due to the public perception of Tekken 8 and Street Fighter 6 right now. And that's going to be sort of the basis of this video. Tekken 8, very bad. Tekken 8 is a serial killer. You know what the word is on the streets in terms of Tekken 8? And it's that it's basically the worst Tekken game ever. It's the worst fighting game ever. It's the worst thing ever made. I'm sure if you've spent any time on the internet, you've heard this. Tekken 8 killed your family. Like, people have been dooming to the most extreme extent. A lot of this has been justified. The game has been poorly balanced, but it's especially the core mechanics, like introducing heat, was very problematic. And then Season 1 of the game, the first year, 2024, they did a lot of things to alleviate problems. And then in 2025, in April, they released Season 2, which supposedly is a big shakeup of the meta. And yet again, the community is like, you're gonna improve the game now, right? And it's turned into dog shit. It actually gets worse in that all the characters, and a lot of characters who weren't a problem before, they all get like buffed heat, where they pop heat, they're in their enhanced bodybuilder state, and now they all 50-50 you. And some of these 50-50s, there's just no counterplay whatsoever. It's a lot of homing mids that are plus on block, and you're like, who designed this? So the game got worse, and justifiably so. The developers got a huge pushback and backlash. Huge backlash. And then a year later, with Season 3, they fuck up again. But so now they're actually letting go of their super stubborn approach to Tekken 8 and their vision for the game. And they're like, Jesus, we have to listen to our player base, because, I mean, at the very least, they want to make money, right? They want to get sales. And they were just shooting us in the foot. They were shooting themselves in the foot. And the game, while it's been doing well, right, it's still, if they had continued on this course, I think it probably would have. I don't know if a Tekken game will ever die. Like, Tag 2 is the best example of a game, of a Tekken game actually dying. But I'm so happy they reversed course, right? But so, justifiable backlash. But I still think, like, Tekken 8, when you compare it to other games like Tag 2, and even like Season 3 of Tekken 7, I think we've been very, very, very negative to a point where I also think it reflects a point in time where I think gamers these days are a little bit more, they cry a bit more. They are a little bit louder on the internet. And I think people are very harsh on devs these days. Sometimes justifiably so, but sometimes I think gamers have a very, very black and white view of games. It's a bit also like I played Last of Us for the first time now, Last of Us 1 and Last of Us 2, and I see the exact same phenomenon. It's very tribal with gamers. Either it's a 10 out of 10 or it's a 0 out of 10, and there's no in between. Especially with Last of Us 2. Very passionate gamers, nerds, right? With very strong and polarized opinions, and tribalism to the extent of like, if you're not with me, you're against me, and people get like very hostile against one another, just due to opinions on video games. On video games, like I've even noticed with Tekken 8, like people who say they like the game on the internet, like they get on forums, like they get very vicious responses. Fuck you, you're the goddamn scrub, they made this game for you, motherfucker, and just downvote. And I'm just like, what is wrong with people? But so, you know, this game has had a lot of problems, a lot of justified backlash. But again, there's some internet shenanigans going on as well, where it's like very polarized, very tribal fanboyism, passionate gamers. So this game has had a very poor image for a long time. I mean, you can contrast to Street Fighter 6, which is basically mom's favorite son. Can do no wrong. I have seen nothing but super positive remarks on Street Fighter 6. Best fighting game ever made, has no flaws. My God, Capcom knocked it out of the park. I have to say that I'm very happy for Capcom, like Resident Evil 9 Requiem, peak. As far as I'm concerned, best Resident Evil game. I'm going to get into these games in a bit of detail soon, but I do want to say that Street Fighter 6 is probably the best 2D fighter I've ever played. I do prefer Tekken, very much so, to Street Fighter, but it's probably the best 2D fighter I've ever played. Street Fighter Third Strike remains an immortal classic to me. I still probably, I don't know, I like really difficult games. It's just my personal bias and preference. So to me, I think Third Strike is better than Street Fighter 6, but you know, that's my personal preference. But Street Fighter 6 is I mean, what a success the game is. My God, it's like, it's the biggest fighting game of all time. This game is a phenomenon. Like the viewer numbers on Twitch, the player count is... I think with the launch of Season 3, was it an astonishing 70,000 in one day, only on Steam? Like, it's a juggernaut that cannot be stopped. It must be the biggest fighting game of all time. And it's especially gigantic in Japan. Japan is responsible for a very sizable chunk of this game's success. And it might honestly be the biggest game in Japan. Not the biggest fighting game, but the biggest game in Japan. I mean, certainly the biggest competitive game, right? And I'm so happy for the Street Fighter community. My God, are they thriving? They're loving their game, and it's Street Fighter 6. Who knows where this game is going to go? What it looks like when we launch Season 4. I hear they might get Tifa. The Gooners are happy indeed, you know, with me, Mai, Cammy, Chun-Li, might get Tifa. There's no stopping this game, so I'm very, very happy for Street Fighter and its community. And I think that Capcom, also with Monster Hunter, they've done a lot of really quality games in different genres. Well done. But, so here's the crux of it. Street Fighter versus Tekken. What is the better game here? And what's the difference between them? So to me, I prefer Tekken, and it's because Tekken has more depth than Street Fighter and is certainly 100 times more complex. Being complex doesn't mean something is better. You can have a movie with two characters, like Marriage Story, where you have Adam Driver, his character, against Scarlett Johansson, and they're a divorced couple, and they have a kid, a son. There's almost no characters in this movie, and it's basically them duking it out in amazing scenes where they talk about how dysfunctional their relationship has been, but how they still love certain parts of one another. And there's no special effects. There's just... It could be a stage play, right? And then you can have a movie with 1 million characters, like a Marvel movie or, you know, any other movie, and 1 million special effects and a million moving parts. But Marriage Story might still be the better movie. Sorry. Sorry for me. At a left field example here. I'm just trying to explain to you that Tekken, just because it has more characters than Street Fighter, and the characters have way more attacks, and they have 10-hit combos, and you can move towards the sides, that doesn't necessarily make the game better. More isn't more quality, it's just more stuff. But it does have more depth, and this leads to more player expression. And with the depth, I mean that the characters are allowed to break the rules of the game. They're allowed to do whatever they want. King, the wrestler, can do a throw that's faster than the other character's throws, and he does a masked animation on the throw where you don't know what button to press to break it. All the other characters, you can tell by how they move when they throw you what button you're supposed to press on reaction. King says fuck you to the game's core system when it comes to throws. And Xiaoyu presses a button and her hitbox, her hurtbox, goes away. It's gone. Can't touch me. Sorry. Yoshi presses 1+4 and he goes, Hachi! Or Chinkui, and he does a 6-frame like reversal. It's an attack, so it's 4 frames faster than a jab that counters you for tremendous damage. Hwoarang lifts his right leg, and now he never has to put it down. He goes, boo, 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 boo. Does infinite shenanigans, right? Tekken characters are allowed to violate the core system a lot. The distinction between, and this leads to a lot of player expression, in my opinion, in Tekken. And this leads to a situation where in Street Fighter, the characters, they have differences between themselves, like Bison, Akuma, Shotos in general, Zangief, Dalsim. They do different things, but 90% of the time, they will more than Tekken play the core system mechanics itself of the game. So for example, how in the neutral, they all have access to Drive Rush to go in, start pressure, and then, for example, when a character is being hit, comboed, and then knocked down, you take them to the corner, or even in the open, you will apply a strike throw mix. So basically, on Wake Up, where your character is forced to stand back up again, they take advantage, the aggressor, of this situation, knowing you will stand up, and now they will threaten you either with a strike on Wake Up to check you on guard or on hit, or they do a throw. And this is where like throw loops come in. You know, you get thrown, and then they dash in again, baiting you to do like a DP that will kill you if it's blocked, right? You're gonna get punished for your entire health bar, or to get out of it, you can try and sort of do a backdash, but that comes with risks of its own, right? You have very limited things you can do when you're defending here. So this is where throw loops come in, where it's a lesser evil, you know, where pros say just eat the throw, take the throw, because it does less damage than you getting your Wake Up wrong, and you can get killed. So basically you get thrown over and over, and this is the throw loop. And this is due to the system where you can't break throws on reaction, so you got to do the throw break in anticipation of a throw. So you're guessing a lot, right? So this is where the game basically revolves around its beautiful neutral, where characters are moving back and forth, and your character might zone, your character might not zone, and there's a lot to that gameplay, you know, with anti-air, footsies back and forths, the normals, jumps, neutral jumps to catch people going in, and then the drive rush, and then the character's unique movesets, right, their specials. But outside of that, it's a very forced, like, Oki situation where as soon as a character is knocked down, it's very, very rock, paper, scissors, which has been a huge criticism of Tekken 8, that there's a lot of rock, paper, scissors situations. Street Fighter is the king of rock, paper, scissors. 90% of a roster forces you to guess constantly on Wake Up. And this is where, to me, that game falls apart a little bit for me, because of how loyal the characters are to the system itself. All characters, when they knock you down, almost every character in the game plays the exact same way. I will dash in and bait you doing a reversal, like EXTP, whatever, or you trying to get out of this, I might do a shimmy where I go in, bait you, right? I don't do anything, and then you do something and I kill you. Or I just start throw looping you, right? And you are just guessing. And this is where the depth comes in of Tekken, where it doesn't force you to take these mix-ups. If you don't want to take those bullshit mix-ups when you've been knocked down, you can stay on the ground. And here a lot of characters actually aren't that threatening if you just stay on the ground. And it's like the way 90% of a roster of Street Fighter deals with these ground game situations, it reminds me of Kazuya and Tekken, but on steroids. Like, against Kazuya, you can obviously stay on the ground, but say you stand back up again and he's threatening you with launchers, right, that are mid, that you want to stand guard, but his unseeable low is basically the throw of Street Fighter, in my opinion. That's the one you want to crouch guard, but you'd rather eat that because it doesn't do that much damage. If he lands a mid launcher, you die. So you'd rather take the throw, which is the low, but if you block that, Kazuya dies. Whereas if you break a throw in Street Fighter, it just resets the situation. Me as the aggressor trying to throw you break the throw, I just nothing happens to me. We just go back to neutral, and you're still in a disadvantaged situation at the wall, most often. So to me, it's like, it is so unbelievably in Street Fighter, as soon as you've been knocked down, the forced mix-ups and the interactions, they are not interesting at all, as far as I'm concerned. Every character just threatens you with what Kazuya does, but it's on steroids because the hell sweep suddenly, the throw, take the throw. Even if you break it, it's like you're still in a god-awful position trying to get out of a corner. So that to me has always been the flaw of Street Fighter, in my opinion, how the footsies them in neutral. It's so beautiful, but as soon as someone's knocked down or comboed, the game now has no depth, in my opinion, because they are forced to stand back up again. They have such limited options, and now they just take the rock, paper, scissors mix constantly. Forced mix-up, forced mix-up, forced mix-up. So the criticism we have levied so hard at this game is a worse offender of the same crime. That's why it's so funny, and it tells you about the bubble these communities are in my opinion, because the fanboys of this game, like me, were so harsh on Tekken 8. But it tells you how these guys live in their own bubble, and they have different criteria on their game as to what makes it great. Because if we accuse this game of what we accuse this game of, we would be much harsher on Street Fighter 6. This game has way dumber forced mix-ups constantly, and every character does them. Every character is Kazuya on steroids. Now, not every character does the throw loop, but the absolute majority does. But, and again, I want to stress, Kazuya plays like that. He forces a blender. Devil Jin does. But most characters do not. They do not. So this is where player expression comes in, right? But an amazing thing we can say about what I just said, just to make this a very balanced conversation, it's a great strength to Street Fighter as well, having the characters play the system more than they are unique characters. Because this leads to a much easier game to balance. Much easier to balance. Because the characters, when all things are considered, they're more alike in a way than they are different, especially when you compare to something like Tekken. There's a similar comparison that can be made between Dota and League of Legends. In League of Legends, all the champions are more similar compared to something like Dota, which is more akin to something like Tekken, where they break the rules constantly and do vastly different things. Furion can be anywhere on the map that he wants to with his teleport. Void pops a chrono, boom, 5-second huge AoE bubble, or 4 seconds, which just locks all the heroes in time. Meepo. Oh, I want to. There's gonna be 4 or what? 5 of me now. Vastly different things. So easier to balance, super accessible game in that it's a bit like chess, you know, where if you just learn the core mechanics of this game, like what is zoning, what is moving back and forth, like footsies, what is an anti-air, what is a DP or an EXDP, what's a basic combo, what can I do in the corner. If someone does a drive impact, you have to press drive impact to counter them. It's just a few basic rules you learn, and now you can play the game. Because so much of the game just revolves around a set of core mechanics and the system itself. More so than learning any given character or matchup. There's that component as well, but more so it's just learning a few core mechanics and the system itself, and boom, you're playing Street Fighter. And just so basic things like I can jump over a fireball, I can jump back, I can jump forward. Everyone gets that stuff. And you don't worry about 3D and sidestepping, which can be very convoluted. And it's like its accessibility is a huge strength. A huge strength, which has served it so well. Whereas Tekken is completely inaccessible. Tekken is like a MOBA. Like a League of Legends and Dota. When you watch someone play Dota, like you have no clue what's going on. Have you ever asked, if you play League of Legends, how would you explain League of Legends to an outsider who's just, he's played Grand Theft Auto. That's the only video game he's played. And he's like, man, dude, Bob, how do I play League of Legends? Or Dota? How do you even begin to explain that? Tekken has the same problem. It is completely inaccessible. To even do the most basic things in that game, my God, the amount of time and the so many things you have to understand. I'd like to back away in Street Fighter, well, hold up back, you just jump away. In this game, how do I back away? About that. Like, or someone's just flailing in my face, what do I do? What do I do against King? What do I do against Horang? What do I do against Xiaoyu? And it's just like, it's almost insurmountable, the level of complexity and the depth of the mechanics that I appreciate a lot. When you've mastered this game, you truly feel like, wow, I climbed a mountain. Because you have to understand so many different characters. You have to understand so many mechanics. There are so many of them. And the depth of those mechanics. But at the same time, it makes the game completely inaccessible to a lot of people. And it makes it too difficult to grasp. And I also think there's a fairness to Street Fighter that's very nice in how it's much closer to chess than Tekken is. Because in chess, you know, you have black and white, and they play they have the exact same pieces. And you can quickly learn what those pieces do. And now you're playing the game. And it's a fantastic game. If there's a chess with 40 additional pieces, does that make chess better? So, you know, there's a lot of those questions to contemplate as well. But, like, again, how balancing is easier in that in chess, they do the same things, and then, you know, the only problem with chess balancing is that someone has to start, right? Someone has the first turn. That's the only problem chess has. And in this game, again, it's chess in the way that the characters obey the system itself. The system and core mechanics like throw loop, footsies, drive rush, drive impact, jumping. Those are the chess pieces. And Street Fighter, they will play the system, those chess pieces, more than they play the characters' individual differences. When I compare to Tekken, right? When I compare to Tekken. So that's very interesting. And but there it just comes down to who you are as a gamer and what you prefer. This game has more freedom more freedom. Mel Gibson, Braveheart. They operate outside of the boundaries of the game itself, the characters. They will violate the mechanics. And a great point as to how brave, in my opinion, and ballsy the devs are of this game, they applied the same philosophy when they put this game into this game, right into the cornhole. They took Akuma and brought his system into this game. Special moves, EX, one-frame invincibility, one-frame supers, phasing, 2D jumps in a game without anti-airs. That tells you how brave these developers are, and how they always had the rule where it's like the characters will be allowed their own identities. There's so much more identity in this game compared to this game. So much more identity in this game, where the characters are allowed to break the rules of their very own environment, the game itself. And that also applied to Akuma from Street Fighter, who brought Street Fighter into Tekken. So, again, in terms of identity, in terms of creativity, in terms of player expression, nothing can top this game in terms of fighting games, as far as I'm concerned. And that is the true beauty of this game. And that's what I think, you know, a lot of players are so passionate about this game, like Tekken players. There's nothing like Tekken. It doesn't come even close. Player expression and also skill expression. Like character, you know, like how movement works in Tekken. In this game and fighting games in general, there's a hard cap on movement. This game, infinite movement. That's why leverless is so broken in Tekken as well, because any type of movement can instantly be cancelled into any other type of movement. So it's just, if you have the mechanical skill, the execution, like very infinite movement. Infinite. Also, infinite execution. An AI maybe can perfect Electrical with Kazuya every time. Infinite difficulty, this game. Infinite player expression. And you know how people will say, well, Street Fighter has harder combos. It makes it a harder game. This is the harder game. For everything I've just explained, this is the harder game. And again, the depth of the core mechanics itself and what sidestepping does to a game. Note that harder doesn't mean better quality or a better game. It doesn't. But it's like, you know, people say, oh, combos are harder in Street Fighter. And it's true. On average, combos are harder in Street Fighter. There's more execution with circles, right? Hadouken motions, double Hadouken. And this is where a bit like, I love this comparison. I love comparing all the time League of Legends and Dota, the two biggest MOBAs, to these two fighting games, because they are so similar. The developers are so similar in how they work those games, and how Tekken is Dota 2. Street Fighter is League of Legends. In League of Legends, all the champions have more skill shots and execution than the Dota heroes. This is true. In Street Fighter, all the champions, the characters, have more execution than the Tekken characters. In Dota, most heroes just point and click. I want to do this spell, I want to do it on that guy. Boom, it just happens. There's no mechanical skill. In Tekken, most characters have brain-dead combos. You just press buttons in a certain sequence and the combo happens. Not difficult. Most characters in this game, however, as I told you, there's execution, right? But the characters and heroes in Tekken and Dota that require mechanical skill, far above a League of Legends and Street Fighter. Far fucking above. We have the Mishimas, we have Kazuya, we have Brian, and as Diaphone told you guys, like, it's way above anything in this game. And in Dota, you have Invoker, you have Chen, you have Meepo, you have tons of heroes that require microing minions and helpers, and it's just far above anything you find in League of Legends or this game. So what I'm trying to tell you is that this game and Dota, it is all over the place. All over the place. It's a very... The developers had a lot of fun making these games, like Dota and Tekken. it's just breaking its own rules left and right, and allowing so much freedom and like identity. Like, what are you interested in? What hero do you want to play? What character do you want to play? And they all do such vastly different things. And again, that is the true beauty of Tekken. And also, like, giving you the freedom to say, like, do you hate mechanical skill? Do you just want to play strategy? Play Asuka. No execution, or Claudio. You just want to focus on the mind games and the strategy itself. No mechanical skill whatsoever. None. You can even play characters where they go like, oh, you don't want to worry about being able to do a backdash cancel? That's universal to the characters. Play a character that just jumps away. They just jump away, like Kunimitsu or whatever. They just jump away. Don't even have to worry about that, right? But if you want to, you can in the same game play the hardest characters you've ever seen in a fighting game. That is the genius and beauty of Tekken, as far as I'm concerned. But it also makes it unbelievably inaccessible. Because while you can play an easy character, you know, easy, so much easier than everyone else, you also have to play against other characters. And now you have to learn these matchups. And this is where the game is so brutally difficult. So brutally difficult. I don't think any fighting game can compare to the experience of trying to play Tekken and trying to learn the matchups in real time. And the amount of labbing and research you have to do is astronomical. Just like a MOBA. Whereas in Street Fighter, at all times, you are more worrying about learning the mechanics, first and foremost, and then it's about the characters, but never to the extent of this game. Never to the extent of that game. And that, so that's like how the games operate and how we can differentiate themselves. And again, it's just, I think this game is better than that one. But it's due to my own personal preference and how I love freedom, player expression, and difficulty. This game is more accessible, and it's in its own beautiful way. It plays more mechanics. It's a bit more chess-like, whereas Tekken is a bit more, well, our pieces do wildly fucking different things. You have your black chess pieces, and they play conventional chess. But here's the white pieces, and they start flying and doing a wizardry magic. Like, that's Tekken. That's Tekken. Or we can switch for red pieces, and they go invisible. Like, that's basically the gist of things when you compare these two games. And then we could go into like how maybe a game journalist or someone who's very casual, how they would rate the games in terms of what type of content is in the game when you buy the game and the visuals and everything. Sorry, stuttering, Joe Biden, I'm very old, I'm 40 years old. I think this game, Tekken, does look better than Street Fighter. Although there's a very clean look to Street Fighter I like a lot. Visual clarity is very strong. The characters have very defined silhouettes. There's a beauty to that. And I also think the critical arts and supers look so amazing in Street Fighter. They look so amazing in Street Fighter. The rage arts in Tekken are nowhere near as cool, you know? They just aren't. That's a fact. But I think in terms of content, like, Street Fighter is very weak, personally. I think there's no customization, which sucks. Customization in Tekken 8 is so much better than anything found in this game. I think you can just customize colors a little bit here, right? And then story content is so much stronger in Tekken, where you have a fully fleshed out campaign mode, and then you have a legacy Tekken arcade battle mode where you get CG endings. Street Fighter, you basically do an arcade and then you get images with voiceover, and I'm like, that's very low production value. I also thought the World Tour kind of sucked. Was that fun gameplay, just running around in a very bad Yakuza-ish thing or RPG-ish thing? I don't know how to explain the genre or subgenre, but it didn't really progress the story. It just felt very, very cheap to me. I guess some people had fun customizing their own character, but it didn't appeal to me at all. I would have preferred a more NetherRealms, you know, cutscene heavy story mode where we get to do more with the characters and build lore. I think Tekken's replay mode and practice mode is also fantastic. Probably the best ever seen in a fighting game. Not that I haven't played every fighting game, but I think those are very praiseworthy. But it also has to be said, I think that they did a better job launching new core mechanics in a game. Like Heat on launch was a disaster in this game. I think the drive gauge, at least from what I heard from the community, has always been better balanced and implemented in this game. Although there's a lot of negative things to be said about Drive Rush and how it serves as like a neutral skip. Like, in my opinion, the interesting part about Street Fighter is the neutral, because as soon as you leave the neutral, as you heard me say before, there's not a whole lot of depth to the game. As soon as you've left the neutral, it means someone's being comboed or has been knocked down, and now they have to wake up into a disaster of a situation. That's not fun to deal with at all. It's awful, actually, and it has no depth. And in my opinion, it feels awful when you play this game and you're on the receiving end of these mix-ups. It feels awful. You have no options. That's honestly why I feel like I want to play Tekken 8 instead. Even Season 2, I wanted to play this rather than this. So it's funny, the perceptions of both games, you know? How Diaphone says, peek and avoid this. And the reason he says avoid is because of forced mix-ups that have been bad in Season 2 of Tekken 8. But he says this is peak when it has 5 times the forced mix-ups this ever had? Isn't that funny? I don't know. But again, I know Diaphone is going on like what the players are saying. What is the core player base saying about this game? And they are saying very negative. But again, you apply the same standard to this and you would be saying avoid this game as well. So it's funny how that works. Yeah, so again, like the drive rush, I don't know if I love that mechanic. Skip the best part about the game. Just Bison, just in a second, flies the entire screen with his super strong drive rush. DJ does the same. And then, you know, so, and then the throw loop situation, I don't like that drive rush into forced mix-ups. But the gameplay is very clean and nice. And obviously, even though this game is easier to balance, it has had its balancing problems. Like what is that? Brain Dead, JP, Bison, Akuma, I guess, to a certain extent. There's been a lot of problems, but all in all, a fairly balanced game, right? They've done a good job. This game has been all over the place for quite a while, but it's starting to become a well-balanced game, I think. But I feel like if I was to recommend one of these games to someone who's never played fighting games, who's just a casual, I do feel this game has more to offer with its dual story modes, customization. The graphics look great, the characters feel cool, and then you have a lot of different characters. You have a huge roster, and you can just play Kuma or whatever and just start mashing into your friends. And this game is more accessible. It has more of a pop culture status. Everyone knows Ryu, Ken, Blanca, you can do fireballs, Hadouken, sure you can. So it has that mass appeal. So I guess you would recommend it to that. But in terms of the content, you know, looking at it objectively, black and white, it's like it doesn't have the content this game has. But it does have name recognition. That's also served this game. Not only its accessibility, but its huge global brand name recognition. Tekken has that as well, and Kazuya and Jin, Heihachi, but not to the extent of Street Fighter. Street Fighter is like the household name fighting game. And that's why it's also getting a new movie soon. But I don't know. How do you feel so far? I've tried to do a very balanced explanation of both games. How I prefer this game, but I hope you don't feel I've been shitting on Street Fighter for 40 minutes. I've really tried to explain like the strengths this game has, but also what I find to be flaws of the game. And that's how they stack up against one another, in my opinion, like Street Fighter versus Tekken. Strengths of Tekken, weaknesses of Tekken, strength of Street Fighter, weaknesses of Street Fighter. And our Tekken 8 lately has been very poor, and we didn't have a drive gauge. We had the heat bar, heat gauge, and they did a very, very poor job with it. And it is getting better. So hopefully, maybe soon, we want to say, not avoid on Tekken 8, but we want to say, do try Tekken 8. But I have to say that, and now you're going to hate me, but as far as I'm concerned, this game, at its worst, Season 2 or Season 1, was still better than this game. So even with Diaphone's original premise where he said, avoid this and this is peak, I would have disagreed with him. Because the very reason we criticize this game so heavily, this game is just more of a... God, what's the word here in English? Is guilty of the same crime, but times 3. That is the truth. That is the truth. Even in Season 2, where I was so fed up with this game, I tried this game and I survived 2 weeks because I was like, there's so much to like about Street Fighter 6, but holy shit, if you don't like forced mix-ups, and like throw loop, like, and every character does it. It's like, no, I don't want to... It feels awful trying to defend in this game. It feels awful. And I lack the freedom and player expression of this game. But so fun, though. And especially when you're the one beating up on someone, feels great in this game. And again, the footsies and the neutral is so beautiful in Street Fighter. And it looks so clean to look at, the game. And the supers are so hype. They always get me hype. So yeah, so much to like about the game. And the game being such a monumental hit means a large player base as well. And a very active community, which is also such an amazing thing to have. But, so that's my Tekken versus Street Fighter, the conversation. I thought it went pretty well. And I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a great day. Take care.